Hello whistleblowers everywhere. Today we're going to do a tune breakdown of a lovely Carolan piece called Dr. O'Connor. It's not one of his best well-known ones, but it's certainly a lovely piece and it's very firmly in the Baroque tradition. This was sort of pre the dance music stuff, so we're going to look in a different way at how we put this together. So there's going to be lots of tonguing and slurring patterns. It's something that we've not done a lot of, but today with this tune, Dr. O'Connor, we're going to be doing tonguing and slurring patterns. So let's have a look, shall we? So it's in two parts. Even though in the music there's no repeats, generally speaking, each part is normally played through twice. So we've got A and B. It's written in 6/8, but it's kind of a jig, but it's not a jig in the sort of the traditional music sense. In so much as that we're not going to put loads and loads of sort of ornaments in it. It's much more about how we phrase with tonguing and slurring, which is exactly what we're going to have a look at now. So I'm going to show you the tonguing and slurring patterns that I use, and then you can see if they work for you. This is not the only way we can articulate this, but I find this works nicely, and it gives it a nice kind of skip to the overall feel of the piece, really. So here we go, Dr. O'Connor. Let's have a look at the A part. So today I'm using my olive wood Western wooden whistle. Really nice whistle, very pleased with this one, and it works wonderfully. So let's start with the beginning, first couple of lines. So let's have a look at how I'm articulating it. Tongue, 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 slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, tongue. So all together. So the kind of tonguing we want is that nice smooth legato tonguing. But what I like to do is put a little skip on certain notes. So it's going. So it gives it a sort of, especially when you play it up to speed. Gives it a nice little bounce, yeah? So the next bit, tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue. So I'm going to just use that tongue, slur, tongue pattern. Repeating the same pattern. Whenever we get that group of three, I'm doing tongue, slur, tongue. So let's put those two together. Yeah, so you can hear that tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue, and I'm shortening that note slightly. It's not true staccato. It's just shortening a note, basically to get that feel. So if I play this up to speed, the first A part. gives it a nice kind of little rhythmic bounce. However, we're doing this in a very controlled way. So what you might want to do first of all is just get your legato tongue and just play it all even like this. So make sure you can play it all smooth and then just slightly shorten. So I'm shortening the last group of 3. Yeah. And I'm using that pattern. Tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue. So the next bit. So there, tongue, slur, tongue, slur, tongue, slur, tongue, slur. And I'm shortening those 8th notes, those quavers. Again. And again using that same tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue. Tongue, slur, tongue, tongue. Okay, let's put our click on. Let's do it at 60. Seems to be the default for the slower tempo, yeah? So here we are at 60. 1, 2. So that's what I'm doing tonguing wise with the pattern. So to get our breathing in, yeah, you can breathe after one of those longer quarter notes, longer crotches, yeah. So plenty of choices in terms of the breathing with that. Just make sure when you've got that long quaver passage, so you've got a whole line just all of 8th notes, that you might need to take a breath after that first A in the 3rd line. But again, it depends on your whistle, depends on you, depends on how fast you're playing it. So anyway, that's the A part. Let's have a look at the B part. So we're going to continue with that tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue when we've got those groups of quavers, yeah? So we've got so once again. Yeah. So there we have a cheeky little A sharp or B flat. So how are we going to do that? So on my whistle, works very nicely like that. Now on other whistles, you might need to play the whole of the bottom hand. So it's all a matter of finding the right tuning. It's certainly those two fingers and then maybe now if I put the whole bottom hand down, it's a bit too flat, so it works nicely like that. If I go back to my wooden whistle, works really nicely. So you might have to alter the fingering maybe, so maybe the one finger like that. It's a bit sharp, so I have to flatten the whistle like that. I get a fairly nice in tune A sharp B flat. However, if you can't get it by cross fingering, you're going to have to half hole it. And that works on all whistles, so it's a good idea to get into half holing. However, if you can get away with cross fingering like I can here, works nicely. So I'm going to cross finger it just because path of least resistance for me. I'm used to doing the cross fingered notes, but again, as I said, if you practice that half holing, then you can do that on any whistle regardless of having to cross finger it. So let's have a look at those two lines. So we're doing lines 1, 2, 3, 4, lines 5 and 6. And again. So let's put them together again. So continuing that tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue. So there we've got a trill on that D. So all I'm doing is keeping that finger up and so we want it for the length of the dotted crotchet or dotted quarter note. Yeah, same tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue. keeping that pattern the same, that tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue. Again, plenty of places to breathe without displacing the tempo. So let's run through this again at 60, the B part. 1, 2. So that's the A and the B parts. Let's put them together at 60. So we're going to play them through A through twice, B through twice. So here we go. 1, 2. Okay, so all tonguing and slurring, there's no cuts in that. I haven't put any cuts in, but we can add a few little cuts and a few little more traditional ornaments, some short rolls or maybe even some long rolls. It's not so much in the Baroque tradition, but there things move on and we can sort of add some of the more modern traditional music ornamentation. So let's have a look at what we can do with this piece in terms of ornamentation. So this is very much my own interpretation, using a number of different ornaments which obviously weren't around in the Baroque tradition, but have kind of evolved. So what I like to do is start off that whole a little cran on the D, so middle, index, middle, that's how I do it. Now if you want to get fancy, you can add an extra A cut. middle index, middle, then the cut with the A. That's how I do the full cran. So you can put a short roll on the F, and again put the so slowly with the crans. So this bit here, I'm just going to do the next line. I'm just going to do the tonguing and slurring pattern. So again, no ornamentation there, we're going to just use the mouth articulation, tonguing and slurring. So put those two lines together. So the next line we can do short rolls on the A. And again, you can put the cran on the D if you want. So cut, tap. Now, if you want to do something a bit simpler, you can do what's called an upper mordant, where you're going note itself, note above, note itself. Again, it's up to you if you want to cran those Ds or just play them straight. I sometimes cran them, sometimes leave them straight, depending on how I'm feeling. So on the E's, on that fourth line, so I'm doing cran on the D. Now you can cran them both or just cran the first one. E cran, same thing. We've got middle, index, middle, and then you can also add that additional cut. So the simple cran, extended cran. So let's look at the second two lines of the A part, so lines 3 and 4. Now you may think that's overkill, and if you think it's putting too much in, then obviously you don't have to put that in. I quite like them in certain places, but again, it's personal preference. You can use those crans or those trills or those mordants. Or just play it straight, it's absolutely fine. So let's play the whole of the A part with some additional ornaments in, yeah? Again, we'll do it at 60. So here we go. 1, 2. again, with those quarter notes, you could put some short rolls or just. Or you could just do a little upper mordant. Both work really nicely. Okay, so that's the A part. So with the B part, this is what I like to do. And again, it's entirely up to you if you do what I do, or you can certainly do something else, or just play it straight as written. So what we've got, what I like to do, turn it into a long roll. And same with the E. So put that line together. And there I put a cran on that D, turn it into a dotted. So there, I can put a short roll, or we can do that and do the upper mordant. So let's try it both ways. So the first time, I'm going to do it with short rolls and long rolls. Now with the upper mordants. Okay, so now we've got so I'm putting a long roll on that A. And again, if you want to cram that high D, that middle D. Now we've got the trill on the D. And all I'm doing is just trilling, keeping that finger off. We don't need it down, yeah? So we don't need to try and do that. That would be a bit crazy. So all we're doing is just trilling with this finger. So I'm going to try and get that trill nice and even. So you may have to practice moving that finger up and down, getting the correct rhythm. Most importantly, that the trill sounds even. Let's try the whole of the B part now. 1, 2. So now we're going to play it all the way through. So the first time I'm just going to play it as written. The second time I'm going to add a little bit of ornamentation so you can hear. Again, we'll keep it at 60 so it's nice and steady. 1, 2. So as always, have fun with this tune. It's a great little O Carolan piece. Very lively, very jolly kind of 6/8 tune. Again, if you found this useful, if you found it helpful, if you could perhaps subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I'm creeping towards that magic 1,000 number for subscription, so I'd really appreciate if you do subscribe to this channel. Again, any comments, any suggestions, love to hear from you and hear what those suggestions might be. Tune breakdowns, technique stuff, anything, ornamentation, whatever that you feel you need help with. Good to hear from you all. Right, folks, that's it from me. I'm just going to leave you with Dr. O'Connor.